Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. It's going to remain fairly cold and fairly unsettled with more heavy rain, especially further southwards over the next few days. Could even see some strong gusty winds as well. Some would even call it stormy, but we're not looking likely to be seeing a named storm or anything, just generally gusty winds with 50 to 60 mile per hour winds in places. We'll then have a look at the longer range, which is continuing to look incredibly interesting. Still seeing the risk of some colder, more blocked patterns as we head towards the second half of November. The GFS has a really potent northerly wind. On today's 12 o'clock run, the GM and the ECMWF both do show colder patterns, but more mobile colder patterns. So less in terms of northern blocking, more in terms of transient northerly or northwesterly winds. Still would be cold, still could be wintry, just wouldn't be as sustained as the GFS would be. But we'll explore that in the second half of the video, and again have a look at the most likely outcomes. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. Now, if you start on the live radar, we did see some very heavy rain move through the south earlier today. We did think it would be a band of initially thundery showers. We did see a thunderstorm warning, but in the end we actually saw some quite widespread heavy rain and little in terms of thunder that covered much of southern England actually. So a bit of a model flop with that sort of system. Again, it was just some heavy rain, so not really causing too many issues, but a lot of the weather apps, and of course the videos, were showing that we might see an hour or two of rain in the end. We saw a good few hours of rain quite widely. Further northwards, we're still seeing some heavier showers break out across the northwest of England into the towards the Scottish borders, and we are seeing some more heavy rain outbreaks across Scotland as well. Not walls of rain, but persistent in places, and even some wintriness over the higher ground. You can see the rain that did spread through southern England earlier is now all the way into the Netherlands and Germany, so it is heading away, and this evening temperatures are around average in the south, slightly colder than average further northwards. Average in the south, maybe actually a touch above, all because we have a bit of a milder Atlantic air mass because of the low that have moved through in the last couple of days. Of course, Storm Debbie, and then more lower pressure moving in through today. Now, if you do have a look at the latest UKV, we'll be able to see the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. You can see the continuation of rain through this evening in Scotland, but it should die away overnight. Tomorrow is actually going to be a relatively pleasant day. Quite a lot of sunshine around, especially towards England, parts of the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and even into the northern tips of Scotland. A few showers scattered between sort of northern England and Scotland there. And temperatures will generally be around average probably once again. But to the southwest, you can see rain is approaching, and it is going to give a more unsettled spoke. It's pretty lively along the south coast there. Again, could see some very strong gusty winds. Again, not looking at sort of named storm level winds, but maybe 50, 60 miles per hour. But considering how Storm Debbie went and how that ramped up very quickly, you can't rule out the risk that this could be named and this could have substantial warnings issued. But it does move through quite quickly through Thursday morning and leaves some heavier rain during the afternoon that does very slowly pull away through Thursday evening. Into Friday will be a much fresher day, colder day, as cold northerly winds coming on the backside of that lower pressure system. But it will be a much fresher, drier day with less showers and more sunshine. Through Friday evening, another weather front approaches from the west and could give some more persistent rain once again overnight Saturday into Sunday before clearing through the afternoon, and generally a more unsettled westerly flow with lots of showers moving in for Sunday. Now, if you look at the max temperatures, you can see through tomorrow we're likely to see temperatures peaking around the 8 to 11 degree marks, generally around average. Scotland still pretty cold. Frosts again for Scotland and maybe Northern Ireland into the early hours of Thursday, but elsewhere temperatures holding up. And Thursday is looking like a pretty cool or cold day with lower pressure moving in, 6 or 7 degrees, with that fresher northerly wind coming in on the backside of the low. Now, as we head into Friday, we do see a frost quite widely for northern areas into Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, still pretty fresh, 7 to 9 degrees, but will be rising with rainfall moving in. And for Saturday, temperatures climbing much higher, maybe 14 or 15 degrees in the southwest, with a pretty mild and warm Atlantic air mass, for eventually that will get pushed away, but probably just in time for Monday. So do now have a look at the long range, which is really looking interesting. Once again, we see a flat westerly at the moment, and that does continue over the coming days. As you see on the back side of the low through Thursday into Friday, we do see briefly colder air masses moving in. It doesn't look too pronounced there, but it is slightly below average. Beyond that, we stay with a generally westerly flow with low pressure moving in, but look, high pressure is gathering out of the Atlantic, and by this time next week, high pressure is building over the top of us, looking fairly settled. But this high pressure move is up towards Greenland and opens the floodgates for a northerly wind by the end of this run. It does topple and becomes more of a northeasterly, and eventually the winds do fall light. But that would be a pretty cold, frosty, and maybe even wintry spell of weather there for a good 5 days or so, with below average temperatures and very generally feeling very cold. You can see the potential equivalent temperature showing a direct northerly coming our way, with isobars straight from the Arctic and continuing these darker blues all the way to the end of the run. And it will be even if we have a look at the temperature deviation, you can see well below average for a good 5-day period there, with it generally, again, very cold northerly winds moving in. Now, if you compare to the GEM, see how that does show it towards the day 10 period. Again, we're showing westerly winds over the next week or so. High pressure builds in with actually a bit of an easterly wind there, and that would be pretty fresh, with the -5 isotherm getting dragged in, but only lasts a day or two before the high pressure topples, tries to move northwards, and this does show transient north or northwesterly winds. Here, the high pressure isn't able to penetrate towards Greenland, or maybe it will just after another sort of cycle of low pressures moving over the top of us, so perhaps slightly more delayed than GFS. Again, this is only day 10, and GFS started only really majorly producing it at day 10, so perhaps slightly more delayed. But nevertheless, still, this amplification of the jet stream is looking quite likely, and cold air is waiting to our north, and even some cold air on the backside of these transient lows would be moving in. So GM, nowhere near as blocked, nowhere near as freezing cold as the GFS would be, but it would have definite spells of below average temperatures, and it definitely would be a generally chilly run with wintry potential on whenever we're in these colder sectors. And there is the risk, as I said, of that northerly wind developing, but later on in November. Now, if you compare to the ECMWF, again, westerly winds continue to push in, high pressure topples, and then right towards day 9, we do see some high pressure moving up towards Greenland, northerly wind potentially starting up. But unfortunately, if we move to day 10, you'd think massive northerly wind coming in. But if you look up to the top left of the screen, this is Monday's run. So unfortunately, Tuesday's 10-day image hasn't loaded for the pressure pattern, but it has for the upper air temperatures. And you can see here a bit of a northerly wind is developing. Not massive, and there's no massive blocking. It's actually quite similar to the GEM here, with a transient northerly wind moving in. But if we do compare it to the midnight run, you can see, again, very similar pattern with a bit of a northerly transient wind moving in. So whether it's going to be completely blocked and freezing cold, we can't say for certain, but a lot of the models are definitely on board with this more amplification in the jet stream, high pressure ridging towards Greenland, maybe only toppling after a couple of days, or maybe like the GFS holding on. Can't say for certain for at least another couple of days, and bringing in a fresh, cold Arctic air mass straight from the north, and with lots of low pressure around, would probably be fairly unsettled. Plenty of showers, so wintry showers, especially in the north, but even to low-lying areas elsewhere, if we did see some activity, more shower activity, maybe even sort of small disturbances in the flow, and of course we would see lots of frost as well, with clearer skies at times. Now, if you finish by looking at the latest ensembles, these are the latest GFS ensembles, you can generally see over the next week it's up and down, below average over the next few days, slightly above average towards the weekend and start of next working week, and then beyond that we're looking more average, so maybe more below average into the final 5 days of November. Definitely some very cold runs appearing, like the GFS operational run, which is in a sort of a cluster of very cold runs. Not got masses of support, but really no scenario here has got massive support. There's lots of scatter, but still a generally cooling trend. The 2 meter temperatures are generally cooling as well. Into the longer term, we're looking more at 6 to 8 degrees. And the dew points, again, cooling into the longer term as well. Quite a few of these runs having dew points only 1 or 2 degrees. And remember, for wintry precipitation, we need those dew points below freezing or at freezing and below freezing. So there is quite a substantial risk, even if we didn't see a massive blocked cold spell, that we did see some winteriness, especially further northwards, with these generally colder dew points, of course coinciding with overnight temperatures and generally fresher air masses. There is quite a high possibility, again it's standard that it's this time of year, but there is quite a high possibility we do see some sort of winteriness, regardless of whether it's a blocked pattern or more of a transient pattern in the longer term. Now, if you compare to the latest ECMWF, unfortunately, we can only have to look at the midnight run, and it is relatively similar. Over the next couple of days, it's colder than average, milder for a couple of days, colder for a couple of days, milder again for a couple of days, and then right into the last few days, it's average to maybe slightly below average, by maybe a degree or half a degree. Some very cold runs appearing, some very mild runs appearing, so there is not a lot of agreement from the ECMWF here, a lot of scatter. So definitely still seeing those colder scenarios coming in the ECMWF, but not as much going for it at this stage. There are some very cold runs down towards the -10 level, sort of 3, 4, 5 there, but within an ensemble spread of 50, it is only really a small margin. So we will have to see more consistency from these ensembles before we build confidence, but definitely still big interest in some cold weather as we end November. Remember, GFS is showing it around day 12 to day 14. Other runs hinting at it at day 10. So it's not in the near future. It definitely is something that is mid to longer range at best. So don't expect anything majorly cold in the next week or so. Definitely colder spells. Definitely fresher air masses moving in. Definitely some frosts in the north. But don't expect anything major in the near future. We are looking more in the longer term, as we do head towards the end of November and start of December, of course. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have enjoyed Mr. Stay safe over the next few days. There's still going to be some generally stormy, unsettled weather around. And of course, stay up to date with the videos. And I'll see you again for another video soon.